What's up, everybody? It's Jared with Capture the Magic, and unless you've been under a rock, you probably have heard about how Cracker Barrel decided to change their logo, change the way their stores looked, and people have been going to those restaurants for a very long time. We're not happy about this. And as one of those people that have gone to Cracker Barrels over the years, I have not been since they did all these changes, but it was not something that I thought was a great idea by any means. But this definitely caught fire. Cracker Barrel's stock lost about $100 million in its value. Then you had the CEO who was coming under fire about these changes that she decided to make and doubling down on them, saying that people were excited about this change and store owners couldn't wait for these new revamped stores to arrive and they could get a remodel. And basically everybody knew this wasn't true. And by the way, this wasn't even like a partisan thing. You had people on both left and right. Even the Democratic Party came out and said that we don't like the Cracker Barrel redesign either. So this wasn't even an issue of like right versus left or anything like that. It seemed like everybody was just against this change at Cracker Barrel. And then I figured today, after hearing that President Trump had some advice he would offer Cracker Barrel on what they should do, and it seems like they took him up on that advice. It says Cracker Barrel, just as a few minutes ago, is scrapping the new logo. And it says after outrage from customers and President Trump. I think President Trump was the icing on the cake here. I think ultimately this is probably going to happen. Very reminiscent of people, we've seen this happen ever since, Bud Light, of really people voicing their outrage on something and these companies listening to it, as I think they become much more aware of that they can make a real impact by really voicing their opinions on matters. So this article from CNBC here says Cracker Barrel Old Country Store will scrap its controversial rebranding plan the company announced Tuesday. It says, we thank our guests for sharing your voices and love for Cracker Barrel. We said we would listen, and we have. Our new logo is going away, and our old timer will remain, who is Uncle Herschel. At Cracker Barrel, it's always been and always will be about serving up delicious food, warm welcomes, and the kind of country hospitality that feels like family. As a proud American institution for over 70,000 hardworking employees, look forward to welcoming you to our table soon. And of course, after this, Cracker Barrel's stock rose in after-hours trading on the heels of this announcement. So before this, they'd lost about $100 million in worth of the company and their stock. It had really taken a hit. So this was probably a lot, not only due to the customer outrage and really seemingly like viral social media outrage, but they were also taking a hit on their stock, which no company likes to see. It's also said the announcement came just hours after President Donald Trump had weighed in on the rebrand, writing that, quote, Cracker Barrel should go back to the old logo, admit a mistake based on customer response, the ultimate poll, and manage the company better than ever before. They got $1 billion worth of free publicity if they play their cards right. Donald Trump said in a Truth Social post just a day after Cracker Barrel told the customers the company would have handled its rebranding better than it did. Yeah, they did put out a statement saying, like, we could have done this better, but we're still going to go along with this plan. And then a day later, they basically changed their tune. It says, very tricky to do, but a great opportunity. Have a major news conference today. Make Cracker Barrel a winner again. Now, listen, whatever your opinion on President Trump is, that's actually pretty good business advice. And I've talked about this many times, that I think companies like Disney and other ones that make these things, they make changes that people don't like. They would earn a lot of goodwill if they came out and said, hey, you know what? We made a mistake here. We're listening to your feedback and we're sorry. We haven't seen a company really do this before. So I'm actually very curious how this will be received. I'm actually curious if people are going to basically be like, okay, you listened to us, we're going to come back, or if people are still going to be mad. But I do think it's interesting to see how this plays out, because I actually think it actually could be a good thing for them to do this. Now, they didn't also say if they were going to change the new layout of these stores or the new aesthetics they put in there. They got rid of a lot of the trinkets you see on the walls, made it like white wood paneling all over it kind of. And from the videos that I have seen of it, I can't say that I enjoyed looking at that, as Cracker Barrel seemingly hasn't changed since I was a kid. And we haven't been for a couple of months. I mean, typically we go to Cracker Barrel, I'd say at least like once every couple of months, get some pancakes, get some biscuits and gravy. Like, it's good. It's solid food. Typically has been lower priced compared to a lot of the other places out there. And I think people really felt like Cracker Barrel was sort of the, it's like, hey, you always go in here, it's like grandma's house. It doesn't change. It's always that comfort food you go to. And when they go and make a bunch of changes, people obviously were not very happy about this. So when they remade the logo, obviously they ditched the yellow barrel and the phrase old country store, leaving just the words Cracker Barrel. The logo had been roasted on social media as soulless, bland, and generic since it was unveiled last week. It was a terrible logo. The logo design of some of these major companies they probably paid, I'm going to guess, at least millions. I'm not going to say hundreds of millions, but they paid millions of dollars for somebody to come consult with them about this rebrand. And I know about this world because I've done this before. I've been part of rebranding, things for companies, and they will pay a lot of money to do these things. Now, I'm not saying that I made a lot of money off of it. I'm saying these major companies that bring in these firms to do this stuff to essentially just have a very bland logo that likely is just wasted money at this point and probably did way more damage than anything else. Said in a statement Monday, Cracker Barrel said, "If the last few days have shown us anything, it's how deeply people care about Cracker Barrel. We're truly grateful for your heartfelt voices. You've also shown us that we could have done a better job sharing who we are and who will always be," the company said. Legitimately, what this really came down to was they were messing with something that people have just come to enjoy. Like, from my personal perspective, Cracker Barrel has been sort of the constant that's always been there since I was a kid and hasn't changed. It's one of those things where we always go there with family, whether we're visiting family in Missouri or here in Florida. Like, it's just a place that no matter which Cracker Barrel you go into, it kind of all looks the same. It's not like kind of going to grandma's house. You just go in there and it's like, oh, I remember this is exactly how it was when I was a kid. And you start messing with this, it's just not a good idea. I will say, this is not the only issue Cracker Barrel has had. They have been purchased by a private equity firm a few years back, and ever since then, you have seen other changes at the restaurant. For instance, when you used to get to the table, you had biscuits already there. Now you had to ask for them. They changed the menus. They introduced alcohol. Just things that over time, it was more of like the nickel and diming you see many ways when these companies are bought by private equity. And it just wasn't the exact same experience. But listen, the pancakes were still good. The biscuits and gravy were still good. So, for the most part, we still were going. But they did raise prices, as most places have done as well. But I think this is a great example of voicing your opinion and letting these companies know that, hey, I don't like this. I think 5 years ago, they would have stuck with this and not made any changes. But I think now you've seen where people start voicing their opinions and they realize, oh, this can have actual damage here. Not to mention also the stock price. I think that was a lot of this. But this whole redo of this logo, everything, it was just so corporate. And I think that's the thing that stuck out about this. Cracker Barrel is a down south, southern dining experience. It's like, you walk an old country home and you want down home southern food, basically, is what the entire concept is. And the rebrand of this was just corporate. It was corporate from head to toe. Then you had the CEO go out there and she was defending this and saying how popular this was with everybody, whenever clearly that was not the case. And it seemingly was doubling down on this and just really corporate speak here. A lot of this, we're trying to appeal to a broader audience. And this is a great microcosm of what we've seen with entertainment companies as well, with certain brands. Let's say Disney with Star Wars, of wanting to reach a newer audience. And so to reach that newer audience, they sacrificed the existing audience that they had. And you've seen Lucasfilm double down over the years on that, as seemingly have ruined Star Wars. And I think you've seen examples of not only Star Wars and other brands, but say Bud Light is probably the biggest one out there, as that brand took a major hit off of the backlash that they received. And I know somebody that works at an Anheuser-Busch distributor, and we've had many conversations about how that brand damage was real and is still lasting to this day. Bud Light has never quite recovered the market that they lost during that whole thing there. But I kind of figured after President Trump made a statement this morning, I was like, ooh, that may be the icing on the cake that kind of pushes this over. And I think if they didn't make this change, this was only going to continue to grow. And you were already seeing people taking pictures of Cracker Barrel parking lots, showing them being empty. And I don't know as to if that had a huge effect. I don't know if that was real or not, but you started seeing that. And so once you start seeing that and people really being on the lookout for, is Cracker Barrel busy? Are people even going there? It's likely not going to be a great thing, especially with, your longtime customers here. And so I think staying true to your roots is, it's not a bad thing. Again, this is what happens at the private equity firms. They get a company and they want to grow it. and they think that they can grow it in new demographics, and they can make all these changes, and the existing customers, the existing fan base will always still go, and you'll just gain these new people that are going to come in off of this broader campaign to, get more customers. And we've seen time and time again that doesn't always usually happen. I mean, usually when you try and really change what something is, the existing fan base is not going to be a fan of it, and they're not going to continue just to go to your establishment or watch your movies and films just because they always have. If you make changes they don't like, you're likely to see reactions like this, especially with social media. And I think being proven out there of actual people speaking up can really cause these brands to really take notice of this stuff. And I think, too, the timing of doing it now after seeing all these other examples of things like this not working and then doing it in 2025, I always thought was interesting of doing that. But again, you're talking about corporations aren't the most, I guess you could say, their ear to the floor of hearing what really people have to say. Many times they operate in their own little circles, and they just assume that, this will go over great because the marketing firm we hired said so. They had people that said it would be great, and then they get the real world, data back, and they're like, oh, people hate this. So I, for one, am glad that they're keeping the logo. I'm very curious if they're going to take the stores back to how they were. That is one thing I would say. And also, just bring it back where as soon as you sit at the table, you get biscuits. I don't want to have to ask for biscuits and take an extra 10 minutes to get biscuits at my table. I want to sit down at my table and have the biscuits. And while we're at it, they also changed the peg game. Bring that back, whatever it was. They said they changed the peg game because it was, I heard some reports saying because it was too difficult for some people. Well, guess what? Get better at the peg game. Like, you don't lower the difficulty of something just because some people can't do it. It's the peg game. It's been there since I was a kid. Figure it out if you want to get better at it. Now, I suppose the outrage wasn't as big as it would have been if they came out and said they were going to change the pancakes. Because if you change those pancakes, I think as mad as people were about the logo change and the store changes, I think you would have had even people way more angry about changing those pancakes. I don't know what they do with those pancakes at Cracker Barrel. They are the best pancakes I've ever had. They're fantastic. They're great. IHOP is terrible. I can't stand IHOPs. Cracker Barrel was a great place to go because you could have pancakes or you could have biscuits and gravy, whatever it was. It's always been solid, good food. So hopefully they learned their lesson, as do other companies here, of not changing your core of what your business or brand has been for decades and decades to go, chasing after this mythical new audience you're going to go grab. I mean, people for the most part know what Cracker Barrel is, whether you're into it or you're not. I don't know what a change of your logo or changing the inside of your stores was going to do to get more people to come to your restaurant. Just my opinion there. I don't think that was ever a good move. I would imagine Cracker Barrel and the CEO were reluctant to go back to this, as admitting defeat in the thing that you were doing. Probably spent hundreds of millions of dollars to make this change, to just revert it back and then potentially getting yourself a lot of people angry at you. But I guess, we will see how this plays out as a little experiment of a company actually admitting, hey, we messed up, we hear you, and we're going back to how it was. Haven't really seen many companies do this. If this does end up being successful, this could put a roadmap out there and let other, companies know, like, hey, if you just admit, hey, we messed up here, we hear you, and we're going to make it right. I don't think that's a bad way to do business, because I'm always for customers voicing their opinions and being able to, demand what they want. And if a business is not going to give that to you, then taking your business somewhere else. I think this applies to everything. No business is entitled to your business and service. They're just not. They have to earn that. And if they don't earn it, then you have every right to go somewhere else. And I think maybe Cracker Barrel realized this, and hopefully other companies realize that, your money and your hard-earned dollars are not just a given. You're going to give this to them, whether we're talking about entertainment or restaurants or clothing brands or whatever it is. And I like the idea of these businesses being much more, in tune with what their customers want, and not just having as much, marketing firms coming in telling you that this is going to be successful and this, and that, versus just listening to your customers. So hopefully this sets a good precedent, but we'll see how this does in the coming days here. But regardless, Cracker Barrel going back to the old logo, and we'll see if they change any of these stores that they redesigned as well. But either way, that's going to be it though for this video. If you like this video, please like it and subscribe to the channel, as we do lots of coverage around here, typically of theme parks, entertainment, and pop culture. And let us know in the comments, what do you think about Cracker Barrel going back to their old logo? And do you think that this will help them in recovering the damage that was done to the brand? And until next time, we will see you later.